Gang, I have had Blue Apron dinner many, many times. Unbelievably easy to prepare and taste so good. Blue Apron is the leading meal kit delivery service in the U.S., and while many people know what they do, many don't know about the types of meals you can eat when you cook with Blue Apron. How do these sound? Baked tilapia, creamy kale, and frigola sarda pasta, sheet pan roasted pork with fall vegetables and creamy maple mustard, chili butter steaks with lemon parmesan broccoli and potatoes, creamy tomato pasta with mushroom and collard greens. Blue Apron delivers fresh, pre-portioned ingredients, step-by-step recipes that are very easy to follow right to your door. That can be cooked in under 45 minutes. The menu changes every week based on what's in season and is designed by Blue Apron's in-house culinary team. Blue Apron offers 12 new recipes each week, and customers can pick 2, 3, or 4 recipes based on what best fits their schedule. Blue Apron sends only non-GMO ingredients and meat with no added hormones. Blue Apron is treating Golic and Wingo listeners to their first dinner, a $30 value if you visit blueapron.com/Golic. So check out this week's menu. Get your $30 off with free shipping at blueapron.com/Golic. Blue Apron. It's a better way to cook.
With the Citi Double Cash Card, you get 1% cash back when you buy and 1% as you pay. That's like the joy of discovering the last donut.
Ooh.
And it has your name on it, literally, in chocolate sprinkly things.
No way.
Double the love with the Citi Double Cash Card. Apply now at Citi.com/doublecash.
Welcome in. Good Tuesday. Glad you are here with us. Hope you're enjoying a fine day wherever you are, and we will try and be a part of that as we welcome you into Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. Trey Wingo, Mike Golic Jr. As always, guys, we are presented by Progressive Insurance, and all phone guests will join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. We have a lot to get into today.
Yeah.
Unbelievable comeback in the Monday night game. We'll hopefully get an update on linebacker Ryan Shazier, although the initial indications are that, according to one of his teammates, he does have feeling in all of his extremities, which is the best possible news.
Best news, yeah.
When you saw what happened early on in that game. We have that to discuss. The finals for the Heisman Trophy are out there. The Cavs do it again. And we literally have a giant fiasco in New York that we need to deal with.
When we get into that Giants thing, I just envision down the road when Eli's kids are older or even the grandkids. Hey, Grandpa, how did your streak end?
Stupidly.
Well, it's a long story, son. I mean, it's just that is one of the most ridiculous situations. But you're right, Trey. There's a ton from Gronk. Right after the show. The amount that happened after our show, from all the firings in New York to Gronk being suspended for the game, which he will appeal. There were a lot, and I just saw a tweet about it. There were a lot of teaching moments in when I've gotten older, and you and I, Trey, in our 50s.
We're getting older.
Well, you look for those. You like that age is wisdom thing, and you kind of start to look for teaching moments a little bit. And in a scary nature, there were a few of those going on over this last few days.
Yeah, we did have a lighthearted teaching moment here this morning as I tried to teach Trey how to say real road rules challenge. I'm telling you, you put it in my head. You made it difficult now.
You know what it is? That's the wisdom jinx right there.
Wow.
Wisdom jinx.
Well, you know what? You put it in my head because that's something I grew up with.
Yeah.
The real world and all of its branched off franchises. Yeah. And the Road Rules Challenge was one of them. Was part of my youth growing up, and so that was something that over on First and Last rolled off my tongue. But as I've come over here and been infected by your guys'
oldness,
AARP cards.
Yeah. Well, look, just backstory here. We'll get into everything else in a minute. I heard him say "real world roadhouse rules" on his show.
Right? It's real world road rules challenge.
See,
now you got me. I hate this. I hate what you've done.
I did hear you say it very, very well on your show.
I didn't even think about it.
The point was, I heard him roll off his tongue, and I'm like, that's really hard for me. Like, somehow R's and L's and like O's and U's get stuck in the back of my throat. Like when I was working in St. Louis, and the Blues would play the Capitals, and Brett Hull had to score on Olaf Kolzig.
Yeah.
Whenever I'd call that, Hull sleeping in Olaf,
you end up gagging.
It just stopped.
Yeah.
So I was complimenting Junior on how well he did real world roadhouse rules. Like, I could never do that.
He keeps wanting to say road
rules challenge.
Yeah.
Road rules.
Roadhouse is a movie with Patrick Swayze.
You're trying to combine a lot of different genres in here.
Hold on. Real world road rules challenge.
There you go.
Impossible.
Yeah.
And he did it right off the tongue, and then, of course, he comes in here.
I can't say it.
2 times in a row. He can't say it.
I'm broken now. I've given up.
I've infected you. So, listen, we'll get past that. We got a lot more to come. Shaun O'Hara, former Giants offensive lineman who played with Eli Manning and now works for the NFL Network, will join us to talk about what has gone on to that franchise this season. Tim Hasselbeck will be here as well. Kirk Herbstreit will join us in the 8 o'clock hour to talk about the 3 Heisman finalists and the one that isn't there, which is somewhat interesting. Plus, Louis Riddick will be here as well, our front office insider. Might his name come up again in a search? He is a guy that knows how to put together a lot of things and has worked in front offices before, so we'll see if the incubator of ESPN will spawn forth another executive or coach, as, of course, Herm Edwards is now the head coach of the Arizona State Sun Devils, and had some interesting and lighthearted moments during his introductory press conference, and he'll be with us later on in the week. That's all we got to get to, but first, as we always do, let's start the show with...
It's time for Off the Top.
Whether you like it or not, it's just beginning.
With Golic and Wingo.
All right, and we start off the top with the NBA. The Cavs, 12 straight wins now Monday with a rout of the Bulls, 1 win shy of tying the franchise record. Who would have thought this team would have that record?
Yeah, you're not kidding. 23 for LeBron, 24 for both Kevin Love and Dwayne Wade off the bench. And still, as we mentioned last week, they're on a 10-game swing right now that could be one of the easiest as far as basketball power index is concerned. So let's see where they go. So from the Celtics' monster winning streak to now the Cavs' big winning streak, the Celtics sitting at 21-4 and the Cavs at 17-7. So it is just amazing over a couple of weeks how things can change and the conversation changes.
Yeah, it's a long season. They play a lot of games, so certainly instances like this get built in, but more than anything, this was more of the Cavs team that we expected after the interesting start to the season. Now interesting, too, with them, Derrick Rose supposedly rejoining the team after a lot of what he's gone through behind closed doors with that group, and they've been pretty supportive of him, saying he doesn't owe them an explanation for what's gone on, and he has to take care of his personal life. So at any point, if he can come back and maybe be some semblance of what he had even been last year, maybe they get something out of him going forward, too.
He's going to rehab that ankle issue that he had coming up next for them. The next few games, Sacramento, then at Indiana, then against Philadelphia on Saturday, Atlanta, and then the Lakers. So those are the next few games for him.
All right, so there's 1 win away for tying the franchise record. We'll see what happens with that as we continue with
Off the Top.
The key to the Warriors' success, be down by 20 at the half.
How about it?
The Warriors improved to 2-0 this season by trailing by 20 points or more at the half as they rallied to beat the Pelicans. Steph Curry, though, did leave the game with under a minute to go after spraining his right ankle.
Yeah, he did. You mentioned the 2-0. Before that, from the shot clock era started 1954 to up to there being 2-0, they were 2-152 in that scenario. So not very good. How about this, though? This has been interesting for the Warriors. They were given 3 technical fouls on Monday, including 2 by Kevin Durant, who was ejected for the 3rd time this season, including the 2nd time in 3 games. Prior to the season, Durant had only been ejected once in his 10-year career. The Warriors have had 6 ejections this season, twice as many as any other team. So that, the target on their back, a little more chippy. And then, of course, you got to deal with a guy who's had some bad ankles. And Steph Curry, he says nothing to worry about. But I'm sure at some point you worry.
Might have been a full moon last night. It seemed like one of those nights. Something weird going on with everyone across the board. Because especially with this team, man, that nice cutesy version of Golden State we thought we had a couple of years ago proves that people weren't really paying attention, first off, because they were never really like that. This team was always rubbing it in your face and reminding you how great they were as they just beat the ever-loving.
Like Draymond Green, kind of stirring the pot.
He'd been usually, but we know Steph has got some arrogance to his games. All of these guys have always had it, but Kevin Durant coming off of an offseason where we thought that championship would validate him, and instead we find out he's an internet troll. The tune has kind of changed for those guys, and it's not a great one right now.
Maybe the burner accounts were his way to release his anger, and he doesn't have that anger. He doesn't have that mechanism anymore to get it out.
Take away the burners.
So it's coming out now on the floor. By the way, again, X-rays were negative on Steph, but he was seen on crutches after the game. So certainly something to keep your eye on. Oh, by the way, the full moon was Sunday, just so you know.
The full moon was Sunday.
So traffic and weather together here on Golic and Wingo.
How about it? Look
at 6:08 in the morning and 36 seconds. All right, we continue with
Off the Top.
Baker Mayfield, Bryce Love, Lamar Jackson named the Heisman Trophy finalist Monday. Mayfield, the prohibitive favorite, becomes the 5th player to finish in the top 4 of the Heisman voting 3 times.
So he was second in the nation in passing yardage behind Mason Rudolph. He was second in touchdowns behind Drew Lock, the quarterback from Missouri. He had 43. Baker Mayfield had 41 touchdowns, just 5 interceptions. We know what he can create outside the pocket as well. Bryce Love he missed a little bit of time, so he ended up second in rushing in the nation. Rashad Penny from San Diego State rushed for just over 2,000 yards. Love was at 1973, and Lamar Jackson did what Lamar Jackson does: 25 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, rushed for over 1,400 yards. But I don't even think this is going to be close, Mike. I think Baker Mayfield is absolutely running away with this one.
Best player on best team. The Heisman formula is very simple. To your point about Lamar Jackson, this season has a higher total QBR, completion percentage, touchdown to interception ratio, and more passing yards than he did last year. So by every conceivable metric other than win-losses, which we understand get lumped onto the quarterback, he is better than he was a year ago. But the team's success not commiserate to that level, and so we get what we get. Baker's going to win this one on a landslide. Everyone else just gets a nice trip.
Along the lines of the basketball, it's a long season, everything evens out. Trey, how long ago was just hand the trophy to Saquon Barkley?
Right, that's mid-October.
Yeah.
Which, give him the thing, didn't even get an invite.
Not even an invite.
So the kids, the lesson is always go for the long play.
Yeah,
okay?
exactly
Go
right.
for the long play, not the immediate reaction, because the guy that everyone was talking about is going to walk away with this thing isn't even there to sit there and clap when Baker Mayfield gets the award.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens going forward with that this weekend. We continue with
Off the top.
It was a physical game that saw multiple players leave with injuries, but the Steelers rallied from a 17-point deficit to beat the Bengals 23-20 on a last-second field goal by Chris Boswell.
We're going to get into, obviously, all the hits and the injuries and the one very, very scary moment last night in that game. But from a game standpoint, I talked about it yesterday. This was a chance for the Bengals to put themselves in that 6-6 group, in a clustered group just right on the outside looking into the playoffs in the wild card spot. And they were doing it, up 17-0. They were looking good. The Pittsburgh Steelers get a field goal right before half to make it 17-3. But, here the Bengals at home with a chance to knock off one of the second-best team in the AFC. Can't close the door. Just absolutely can't finish it this one. Then it turned a little ugly with some of the penalties because, we'll get into the penalties as well. These teams in the last 3 years, most penalized teams, big penalties, I should say, as well. But this was one chance that the Bengals had here, and now the season pretty much done.
11 personal fouls between the two teams, but the Bengals, I think, set a franchise record for penalty yards in a game, which is what can ultimately undo this effort because Andy Dalton looked sharp for a majority of the night. They
great.
were getting production out of their run game, which I think they're the worst rushing team in the league or somewhere darn near close to that. They actually outrushed the Steelers last night, 22 for $130 off the backs of Joe Mixon and Gio Bernard. But all of that gets undone when you play sloppy football in the rest of it and when you let poise get in the way of things. And both teams at times let that get in the way of their winning effort. And that's something that the Steelers certainly want to correct going forward if they have the aspirations that we believe they do.
By the way, over the last 3 seasons, including playoff matchups, these teams have committed 32 major penalties, which is unnecessary roughness, unsportsmanlike conduct, face mask against each other, which is nearly twice as many as any other matchup over that time frame, which would be the 49ers and Rams with 18. So, look, the passion and the anger is real when these two teams play.
Yes.
There is no question about it. And that, of course, was off the top. And we continue to talk a little bit more about that game and all the ramifications that went with it. By the way, Le'Veon Bell had 76 rushing yards, 106 receiving yards, and a touchdown where he was not pushed out of bounds because someone chose not to try and push him out of bounds, William Jackson III. He's our player in the zone, which is brought to you by AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Okay, there's really 2 things to deal with here. Let's talk first and foremost about what happened in the first quarter. Right. With the hit early on in one of the Bengals' first drives where Ryan Shazier went down and was carted off in this game, and it looked bad right away, Mike. And everyone saw when you were waiting to see, because you saw him point to his middle of his back when he went down, when he lowered his head on the tackle, and you could see there were movement in his arms, but you never saw the movement in the legs as he was being attended to on the field and then taken off and then later taken to a trauma center in Cincinnati, and you just it just whenever that happens, it just sucks the air out of everything for a while, and all you can think about is, my God, what happened, and is he going to be okay?
Listen, I got queasy. I got sick. My stomach felt sick when I saw that, and you saw the replay. You saw him put his head down. I mean, we talk so much about that nowadays, and he put his head down right into the hip area of a player, so he took that full impact. And he just went down, and you said it, Trey. He reached and grabbed for his back, and then he rolled over. And the first thing I know I always do is I look for movement in every limb. And you saw him with his hands because he reached for his back, and you saw him unbuckle his chin strap and put his hands over his face mask and such. But I kept looking. I think we were all staring at his legs, just waiting for his legs to move, and we never saw it. And I'll get into instances I've seen while I was playing, and one I was actually part of. You always look for that thumbs up going off the field. You got none of that. You got his hands over his head. He knew something, bad had happened, and everybody around him did as well. And that was a tough watch, seeing him go off the field.
Yeah, I think that's the tell, right? Guys always know when something is really wrong, and you can even take that out to the teammates, and to see the emotional response right there on the field from those guys with him. And then to just have to blow the whistle, and all of a sudden you're in the red zone trying to just finish out that series and go back. You watch the way the rest of that first half went, where the Bengals largely dominated, and I said, the Steelers, if they lose this game, I can't fault them, because I don't know how you're supposed to go and continue doing that. But they managed to the point where we got back to the end of the game, and they had one of their players on the other side of the sort of hits that make you cringe in this area, and so it got back to the normalcy of even this rivalry, let alone a normal football game. But it's such a difficult thing to overcome, certainly for the guys on the field first and foremost, but to your point, everyone watching had that moment where, how do I really go about caring about the rest of this game when that's the one thing you want to keep checking on? That's the only thing you want to hear information on, and rightly so. The Steelers weren't going to give out any information flippantly with this. They were waiting to make sure we got exactly the right info on what's happening, because that affects his family hearing that information out over the broadcast, a number of people that are clearly more important to this situation than just our craving knowledge.
Right. And look, the Steelers and Mike Tomlin said after the game they did not have an update. However, our Jeremy Fowler talked to Steelers linebacker Vince Williams, and he said Williams told Fowler that Shazier, as he was being carted off, told Williams he could feel his extremities and that he would be okay. So if that's the best possible.
Because we didn't get that news during the game.
No,
we kept
did not.
waiting for that, and our people weren't getting that information, and that's all you wanted to hear. That's all you wanted to hear. So it was so good to hear that his teammate said that.
And hopefully we'll get an update on his condition going forward. Now, you guys obviously both played in college. You played 9 years in the NFL. You were in training camps in the NFL. Did you ever have a situation where you saw one of your teammates carted off like that?
Well, I mean, while I was playing, two happened. I retired in 1991, Mike Utley with the Detroit Lions, when his head hit the ground. And I just saw Mike, I think it was in June, at a Gridiron Greats event in Vegas. I saw Mike. I've seen him more than a few times. Obviously, he's still in the wheelchair, but the dude is just living life to his absolute fullest he possibly can.
I think you saw him skydive.
Oh, it's been incredible what he's done. And in '92, Dennis Byrd with the Jets on a pass rush, he came and he hit his own teammate in the chest and was carted off the field. I believe he ended up walking to midfield for a game after that, and
tragically passed away a few years ago in a car crash.
Exactly, just horrible. And actually in '92, and that year in '92, November '92, we played the Giants. And I hit Jeff Hostetler, and I hit him I caught him with my helmet in his chin area and head area. In today's game, I certainly would have got probably flagged and fined for it. And he got carted off the field. And a lot of people asked me, did that chill me out? And the reason it didn't is for the reason that I looked for last night. Jeff was moving everything.
Right.
Jeff was moving his arms. He was moving his legs. He was conscious. He was talking. It wasn't like he was knocked out and not moving something. So, again, I'm in my 20s, this macho, manly thing, this hit, the old lineman was coming after me for the hit and this and that, and there's yelling back and forth. But there's a guy laying there, and he got carted off, but he moved everything. So that really changes a lot of the equation when you see that. Because last night, that's what chilled me out, is when I didn't see anything move. So I've seen it. You see one where, as you mentioned, with Dennis Byrd unfortunately passing away, but had walked after that. utterly not. Hostetler was fine. Actually, we played him a little bit later that year as well. But, man, it's scary in the beginning.
Yeah, you mentioned being involved in that one and the feelings associated with, and you're not glad about anything that happened last night, and obviously, the way that Ryan went into that tackle seems to be at the forefront of this. But you are, I felt myself just thankful that there wasn't someone tagged with that hit the way you were on that.
Right.
Because to do that and then see the guy not moving there and not see him have the use of his legs, we can all be as macho as we want and go out there and understand that you play this game where this risk is always there. And that's a big part of the conversation going forward, is the continued acknowledgement that you have to deal with as a league, the fact that this risk is always there and people are more in tune with that than ever before. But to know that's always there, but to have that guilt over your head the rest of the game, I don't know how a guy would have gone on if you had that weighing over the top, not knowing the information that we have just heard now or not getting any inkling of that. I mean, haunting.
You're absolutely right. And I was asked that as well, the what ifs if he wasn't moving. I said, listen, I can't answer that.
Right.
But, I mean, to your point, Mike, I can't imagine my head being anywhere but in the clouds in a fog if he wasn't moving something going off the field. Because even when Shazier is gone, it's like you have to go back on autopilot. At some point, you have to get yourself back into that game because then it's self-preservation. If you don't, you're going to get hit. You can get hurt. So you have to somehow physically get yourself back in the game.
Yeah, that's just it. If you don't, you put yourself and you put the other people around you at risk for something similar. And I saw Ross Tucker tweet this last night, but it's kind of true. He goes, the next play after is kind of weird for everyone, and then 2 plays later, you somehow manage to click back into it because it's muscle memory, it's a lot of these other things, and it's just this understanding that none of it ever really stops, and you felt it whether it's been in a practice where they just move the drill down the field or when Matakevich runs onto the field. There's no difference. This doesn't stop for anyone. That's nothing new in all of this, but last night, and again, maybe we're more aware of all of this stuff than ever, and there's a million eyes on it, but that was as haunting as something we've seen in a while.
Just watching it again on the TV replay, it's very personal for me. One of my son's teammates at Georgetown suffered that injury in college, and you see it up close and personal, and it's devastating.
Oh,
and you never It's really hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard. And as we were watching the game last night, I could see it in his face, and that's all he was thinking about is his teammate Tyrell, who's doing great now, but is still trying to work through some stuff. And that was almost 2.5 years ago. So
it's tough. It was a tough moment for if you were a ball player, kind of live in the moment. If you're not, you just in this day and age, as Mike, as you said, you just kind of this is where we are now. And man, keep your head. I mean, you just can't say it enough about the today's game and where we are in football in trying and keeping your head up.
Yeah, and that's something that you hope is correctable with that. But if you're the NFL, you're dealing with this constant battle of knowing that this is what your league is putting out, and this has been the publicity around it. Last night was, in a lot of fronts, the last thing on earth you were looking for.
Absolutely. And again, what Jeremy Fowler learned from one of his teammates is that he did have feelings in extremities. Hopefully we'll get an update on Ryan Shazier later on the day. We'll also get into what happened in the game and the massive ramifications that it had for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll have that as well. But coming up, something happened in the NFL for the first time in over 40 years on Monday. And we'll talk with someone who has intimate details of that situation.
Hey everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
Computer, execute 12.4p operation.
Optimizing algorithm. Running encryption packet alpha. Night. Oh, I don't feel so good.
What is it, computer?
Is it hot in here? It feels hot in here. I feel a little clammy. I should lie down or something.
A computer with a virus? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
Those oysters Rockefeller were a mistake.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
former New York Giants offensive lineman, a Super Bowl winner with them, and a teammate of Eli Manning, who now works for the NFL Network. Joins us now on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Shaun O'Hara is with us. Get instant gold status at Shell. Join the Fuel Rewards program now at fuelrewards.com/gold. Shaun, thanks for getting up early and being with us. The idea that this would happen to the Giants of all teams that hadn't had an in-season coaching change in 40 years must be a little weird to you, considering that they, for all these years, had been sort of the model of stability for a franchise, right?
Yeah, top of the morning to you all. Very surreal for the Giants, for the organization, for the fans. Just 2 years ago, less than that, they just ushered Tom Coughlin out the door, and that kind of signaled a huge change in ownership and in direction. So I don't think anybody thought they would be doing this again in this short amount of time, especially given last season. But it was obvious that things were not headed in the right direction. And I think, as much as they can say that the Eli benching wasn't the last straw, I think that really is what pushed them to make an immediate move, because the anger and the disappointment, not just for the season, but for what had transpired, really just kind of was overflowing, and I don't think they could handle it anymore. A 2-10 season is hard enough to take, but for fans, the one thing they were hanging on was that they still had Eli, and when they took that away, there was no other choice.
I don't think there was any doubt. I don't think anybody's surprised the two guys who were fired. It was a matter of more of when, not if. So they were fired, and I agree with you with this last straw type of situation. So in this Eli situation, you and I know a lot of your former Giant teammates have been talking about this. Where do you lay blame on how the whole Eli Manning situation was handled?
Well, I think, it seems to me like there was some gray area, and that is what I don't understand. I don't know how there could have been that much disconnect between what John Mara was discussing with them privately and then what was said to Eli. It just doesn't add up to me from a football standpoint, because when it happened, I said, if I'm Ben McAdoo, how do I stand in front of my team and tell them with 5 games left to go that I'm expecting maximal effort when I'm not putting my best quarterback out there on the field? And so that did not make sense to me. And when you look at the team and the season, the whole point is, we're not going to make the playoffs. We don't have a whole lot to play for, but we do have some pride to play for. And by putting Geno Smith in, with all due respect to Geno, he doesn't give you your best option to win. So I think there was some disconnect with what was what went on between them and what was then transferred to Eli about, hey, you're definitely coming out of the game after halftime. And I don't think that was the initiative. I think it was more, hey, look, if the game gets out of hand, we should try to put these, Geno in and maybe even Davis Webb. But the head scratcher is Davis Webb hadn't even been active.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you go from him not dressing to all of a sudden now he's going to start playing. That didn't make sense. And I think when you look at that, it should have been a no-brainer. Hey, look, if Geno's or Davis Webb is active and the game was a blowout, then let's give him some play time. But I think moving forward, Eli still has some good football in him, so it didn't make any sense.
Shaun, we had heard about a group of players that had been preparing to maybe show up to the game this weekend wearing Eli's jerseys as a show of support from him. I don't know if you were a part of this group or if you talked to guys, but I guess just the general sense from yourself and other guys who played with Eli about how this has been handled and the feelings towards the organization that have come from this.
Yeah, I kind of caught wind of it all. For the guys that wanted to do that, that more power to them. And I thought it was a great display of support. What they don't know is that all of his former offensive linemen, we wear Eli Manning underwear. So, we've been supporting him throughout all this. And
that is support, by the way. You're right. That is support, Shaun.
Yeah, big time. No chafing either. So I think when you look at just what happened and how upset everybody was, I think everybody wanted to do two things. Number one, show support for Eli because what he's meant to everybody. Guys he's played with, guys he's played against, fans. Everybody certainly felt for him in that capacity, but also, I think everybody felt like, man, this had gotten out of control, and nobody knew if it was, McAdoo that was running that train, or if it was Jerry Reese, or so I think everybody tried to show a little solidarity. I do the post game show, so I don't know if I was going to get to wear an Eli jersey. I probably wouldn't have fit in it anyways, but I definitely was supporting Eli, and it's tough too because the Giants family is very close, and when I say family, I mean everybody that's played for them, current, former, worked for them, people in the building. It's really a close fraternity, and it was tough to go through for everybody.
Chafe-free Eli Manning underwear. Who knew all this time the quarterback was protecting his lineman?
There you go. See, there it is.
Marino started the Ice Toner gloves, and Eli just said, you know what, I feel so much more connected to you guys, and that's kind of how it went down.
Well, let me just say,
that escalated quickly.
Yeah, that was impressive, Shaun.
It got out of hand fast.
I'm not going to lie to you. That is we handle all your chafing needs at 6:38 on the East Coast here on Golic and Wingo. All right, Shaun O'Hara with us, who obviously won a Super Bowl with the Giants, played with Eli Manning for all these years. The bottom line going forward now, Shaun, is what? Because Eli has already said, I want to play. Can this marriage of Eli Manning with the Giants be saved after what he went through and the ridiculous reason, the absolute ludicrous, insane, no reason for it reason, that his streak of 210 straight starts ended?
I think it can. I think it can be salvaged, but to me, there's a couple things that have to happen. Number one, they've got to find a way to fix some of the transgressions that have happened with the offensive line. And, I hate to just kind of throw the whole group under there because there are some good players and some guys that are really playing hard, but there's no question about it. Eli has not been able to stand confident in that pocket, and it's not just this year. It's been going on for a couple of years. So I think that needs to be addressed. I think Eli doesn't want to put on another uniform. He doesn't want to wear another helmet. But there are decisions to be made for the future with this year's draft coming up, and I think Eli realizes all that. He's savvy enough to understand that, but if they come to him with a plan better than the last plan that they came to him with, I think he would be on board with trying to play another few years. And I still think he's got some really good football in him. And when the game was on the line, Eli is the kind of guy that you want with the football because he can win the game with a couple throws. He's already proven that.
Shaun, gut feeling, next year rolls around, game one, is Eli starter for the Giants, or is he somewhere else?
I think Eli's still starting for the Giants. I think, yes, there are some good quarterbacks in this draft coming out. I don't know that even if they did draft one of them, that they would start week one. Eli didn't start his rookie year, and I think when he came to the Giants and I saw him, he was probably the most prepared rookie I've ever seen, and he still didn't get the start right away. So I think there's a good chance that Eli is still starting for the Giants next year. My big question is, what kind of offense are they running? Hopefully it's something that is much more suited to him.
Well, we'll see if that plays out going forward. And look, if they go back to him this week, as Jordan Renan, our Giants reporter, has already said, it was like, for who, for what? Why did that streak end? It makes no sense.
Horrible.
Shaun, we appreciate it. Look, and I want to tell you something, Shaun, okay? You do great work on the NFL Network, but nothing will ever top your television appearance on Silent Library with the Giants and the Giants offensive lineman.
Awesome.
If you guys haven't seen it, go find YouTube and look up the Giants offensive line playing Silent Library.
Well done.
My face still hurts from that tennis ball throwing machine, but one thing that they didn't tell you was that maple syrup in large quantities is a laxative.
Oh, good to know. So let me get this straight.
Didn't know that.
We're so glad we had Shaun on the show for all your chafing and early diuretic needs.
I was going to say, did that sully the Eli Manning underpants?
Okay, we've crossed a line. We have crossed a line at 6:41 in the morning. See, this is why you're on the show. This is why Shaun is on the show.
Thanks, Shaun.
Shaun, we appreciate it. Thanks
Shaun.
for being with us, man.
Hey, thanks, guys. Hey, and congrats on your new show. Trey, watch out for your fingers, pal.
You got it, pal. I certainly will.
Leave it to an old lineman to bring
Right?
up underwear,
Perfect.
laxatives, and all that. You old linemen are sick.
Top of the morning, everybody.
Yeah, how about it?
It's because we're usually left in a room with other fat guys to our own devices.
Yeah.
You let us out in a polite society, and all hell breaks loose.
True.
All right, so everybody enjoying your breakfast, you can stop eating now. So we talked a lot in this hour about the injury to Ryan Shazier, but you cannot overemphasize how important that comeback was for the Pittsburgh Steelers because, listen, this is going to come down to a Week 15 matchup for AFC supremacy when the Patriots travel to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. They each have one game before that, then it's Week 15, and in all likelihood, the winner of that game is going to get home field advantage. So it was imperative for them, the Pittsburgh Steelers, to match the Steelers or the Patriots record and win their 8 straight. They have done that, and they really keep alive the possibility that whoever wins that game in 2 weeks is going to be home for the playoffs.
Yeah, I get that, and certainly from Pittsburgh's side, they were going to be in the playoffs and what they were fighting for. To me, it was more important for Cincinnati, to try and save their season, try and get the 6-6 to be one game away from Baltimore for a wild card, and they still have to play Baltimore. They would have been with another clump of, I think, 3 other 6-6 teams, but still would have had a chance. Because then again, you wonder if they're not in the playoffs this year, what kind of changes are going to happen for this team. Pittsburgh set, and I understand everything you're saying about their positioning, but for Cincinnati, this kind of tilted the scales now off of the playoffs for them, and again into okay, what's going to happen in the offseason.
It's pretty amazing. You're right. Marvin Lewis, I guess it must have aged overnight because the last time I checked, it felt like it had been a decade. Marvin Lewis has been there for 15 years now, and they haven't won a playoff game in that entire time. So at some point you understand that the value of continuity, and I bring this up all the time in the world of college football, continuity and the importance there. But certainly in the NFL, we see these two franchises especially value that at their head coaching spot. At some point, the benefits that affords you of having that familiarity around the building are just outweighed by all of the lack of success there.
Yep. Absolutely. And again, the Steelers had been, this was only the third time in 155 games where they've been down 17 or more on the road. They came back to win. So there was the big hit that Shazier unfortunately got carted off for. We'll try and get an update for you about him later on in the show. But later in that game, Juju Smith-Schuster with a huge peel-back block on Vontaze Burfict. That
legal, didn't get flagged for it. He's going to get suspended. I mean, he's going to get fined.
He will get fined for it. And afterwards, this was him apologizing in the locker room. But I also want you to listen to the background for what you're going to hear from Antonio Brown.
I didn't know it was Burfict at first. All I saw was the first Bengals dude that was in the tackle Le'Veon. So in my instinct, I got a block from my teammate, and me just playing ball. I hit him. After I seen the replay, I think I should have held back a little bit more and just from blocking him.
Hey, sure, I got straight cash on him.
I also believe that's not me. I should never stood over him. I apologize for that. And
it's called karma.
With that being said,
it's called
I hope he gets better.
That is Antonio Brown yelling, "It's called karma" in the background. A couple of years ago, 2015 wild card game in Cincinnati. It was Vontaze Burfict who hit Antonio Brown across the middle, concussed him, and that led to the Steelers having that amazing comeback win. But then, of course, they were without Le'Veon Bell and they were without Antonio Brown in the divisional round. They lost to the Broncos that year.
This block, again, the block didn't get flagged. He got flagged for standing over Burfict and taunting him afterward. The block I liked. I mean, he put his shoulder down, but unfortunately some of his helmet caught Burfict in the helmet, and he's going to get fined for that. They want that out of the league, and I understand that. So they're going to fine any situation of that. He tried to get down low. He almost made it all the way low enough to not get what I think will eventually be a fine. And the reason you have Antonio Brown yelling karma is Burfict had to get carted off the field. Now, before he got into the locker room, Burfict, he said, "I want to get up off this, off this backboard, this cart," and he did get off, so he was fine. He walked into the locker room under his own power, but that's why Antonio Brown was yelling karma, because Burfict had to be carted off the field in this one.
Still probably not the place you want to be screaming karma, and the last couple of years haven't exactly been kind to AB PR-wise.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Completely
By the way,
agree.
We are Golic and Wingo, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests will join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Obviously, what happened in New York on Monday continues to be discussed because of how it was handled, what it meant for Eli Manning, and what it means for this team going forward, not only with the quarterback, but the coach and the GM. Coming up, we'll talk to another one of Eli Manning's former teammates about that, plus the suspension for Gronk, and should he appeal it? That's next. Stay with us.